listen so that you can learn what they're trying to say and why they're saying it and why it's so important to them. And that's really going back to step one. That's what a friend does, is that you listen and you learn and try to see it from their side.
Hello and welcome to the podcast, to another episode of Queerly Overthinking. I'm your host, Adam Harper, and today's episode, I'm joined by my amazing sister-in-law, Mary. And today, we're going to be talking about understanding someone's different political and religious beliefs and learning how to foster and build relationships with people of different beliefs. All this and more coming up. I'm so excited and so incredibly honored to have Mary here today. And with that, let's get started. Well, welcome, Mary, to the podcast. I am literally so hyped to have you here. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is on my bucket list to be on a podcast. So thanks for that. I'm excited.
Of course. Literally, when you told me that it was on your bucket list, I was just like, oh my gosh, okay, this has to happen. We have to plan this out. I'm so ready for this. And honestly, I'm truly so honored that you're here too, because you are such an amazing person in my life. And I have always felt so loved and supported by you. And I am just so excited that this is another part of my life that you're willing to like be involved in and to share in this space and stories and like all the things. So thank you again.
Thank you. This is going to be fun.
Well, let's go ahead and kind of give our listeners a little brief introduction. As mentioned in the intro, I had mentioned that you're my sister-in-law, and I would love to kind of just do a brief highlight over, how we first got to know each other and how our relationship has progressed over time. So I'll let you kind of like share out your first few points on that.
Yeah, well, Adam comes from such a big family. He has 8 kids in his family now. And when I met Adam's oldest brother, Jason, in high school, we got to be friends and we got close and we started dating. And our first date was actually the weekend that Adam was born. So when I met Adam, he was like a brand new baby, which also means I was older. So I was probably like 16 and in high school. And so that was really fun. And I hadn't spent a lot of time with little kids because my sister is 18 months younger than me. So literally the youngest person in our house is my sister. So, it's not a big separation. So if I was in high school, she was in high school. So I remember one day was really hilarious. I would have this life where it would be 2 kids in the house. So it was pretty quiet, pretty chill, and I would go to the Harper house and it would be the opposite. And that is not a bad thing. It's just a different thing. And so one day, especially, I remember I was there and it was probably a couple years. Adam had to be like 4 or 5 years old. And there was just chaos. Somebody got a really bad bloody nose because of horsing around. I think somebody had a diaper explosion. Someone was fighting with someone. And it was just pandemonium, which I thought was overwhelming, but also really kind of fun, So it was just a lot of things going on. And I remember me and Adam ended up kind of retreating into your sister Jenny's room just to kind of get out of the way, just, for the other people to kind of take care of stuff. And we were just chatting. And I remember it was quiet, it was calm. And you turned to me and you were like, I just want to hang out with you. I just want to watch a movie at your house. And I just thought, this is so sweet. Like, I love this little guy. And it was also really fun for me because of how little time I had spent with kids, that here was a kid and how fun is he? And so now that I have kids of my own, that was just one of those first moments where I thought, this is awesome. So those are my earliest memories of when we met and the foundation.
Mary, I love that so much. And I love how precious of a memory that is. And just how many years ago was that? I'm almost 30 at this point. So that's got to be at least like.
And I'm 46. I'm 45, almost 46. So yeah, we met like when I was 15, 16. So.
Oh my gosh. You are totally on point though, that a lot of chaos sometimes, a lot of ruckus going about. I actually did a recent episode where I talked about how nice it was to be able to find those little pockets of quiet in the house and be able to like have those moments to yourself where you can just like breathe and just kind of be with your own thoughts for a little bit. So I love that like ties into your memory of us just being able to like step away from all the kind of like the rambunctiousness of having, a big family and being able to just like have a moment of quiet. But then we're like, let's just hang out and do fun stuff.
Right? Yeah. See, look, you were learning those things at a very young age to find the moments, the quiet moments.
Well, I would love to share some fun memories as well. I know growing up, I was involved with helping Jason, my brother, your husband, with his political campaign, with designing out the website. It was like very early on when I was getting into HTML and CSS and web design and other graphics and things like that. And throughout the years, I've continued to like help maintain that and work through that. But I also really appreciate too how you've supported me throughout the years, not only like through my college career, but then also in my own journey of self-discovery with my beliefs, but then also with like who I am as an individual. And I just really have always appreciated that like throughout the years there's been this constant support and like want to have like a quality relationship. It's been fun to see how that's evolved over time. I will say though, okay, I wasn't gonna say this at first, but I was so sad that my brother Jason was getting married because he'd been away on his church service mission for so long, and he'd just gotten back, and like shortly after his mission he came back and was then getting married to Mary. That I was like so devastated that I just was crying the entire time, or like I just wouldn't smile for pictures or anything like that. And so that is like a fun, silly little memory, but I also feel like I'm sorry that I wasn't smiling in so many pictures.
Adam, you would think that, a bride would want everyone to be perfectly happy, but for everyone to be real, and for you to be real and to be a kid who is feeling that tenderness, I found very endearing. I felt bad that you were having a bad day, but I was like, it's not the end, Adam. We'll be together sometimes. You can come watch a movie. But it was fun that was your perspective. I think somebody must have told you something like, oh, your brother's going to be gone. I don't know. Maybe they were not being helpful. Maybe that's not true, but
Right, right.
it was like someone triggered something here. But kids traveling, taut, tired, hungry. I'm sure weddings are long days.
Totally, totally. Oh, and I was gonna mention too, like we talk regularly. We either send text messages or use this app Marco Polo. If any of you are familiar with Marco Polo, it's like video voicemail in a way, or like you're like sending video messages. And y'all recently came to Texas for the solar eclipse, which was an
So
amazing. I still think about it. Like
I do too.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard people who are like, once you see an eclipse, you have to go see them all. And I was like, well, I just, it's another bucket list thing. I'm like, well, I want to see one. Oh no, it's true. Once you see one, it's just amazing. Yeah, I was thrilled when I saw that you lived in the path of totality. I was like, sweet, this is perfect. We had such a nice weekend. You're such a good tour guide. So it was great.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, to get things started, as folks who may have listened to previous episodes of the podcast might know that my dear friend Cass helps produce the pod. And amazingly enough, Cass and Mary were both able to meet recently when Mary and the family came to visit for the eclipse. And it was so fun to be able to have people that I consider both family and chosen family to be able to meet for the first time. Like, I really feel like that was like, well, I've had like other friends meet as well, but like, it was just such a great experience for like somebody who's currently like in my day-to-day life and like from both a long distance and a short distance to be able to meet. It was just like it was such a fun time. So
It was so fun. She was so easy to be with, and I enjoyed her episode of the podcast. So it was fun. It was like meeting a celebrity.
oh
So.
my gosh. Well, with that, Cass has a question for us, or specifically for Mary, to kind of start off this podcast with. And she asked, Mary presents herself as very caring, warm, and inviting. Knowing that she converted to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or Mormons, how do you continue to remain open and understanding to other opinions and beliefs?
I thought that was a great question, and it made me think about it as well. I joined the church when I was about 16, and so I had 16 years of my life before joining the church, and now I've had that much more time afterwards. And I feel like it's such a gift to have that, to be able to see two different, ways of living. Not only that, but a variety of ways that people live their lives. And I really love that people have their own support structure and their belief system, and that everyone is on a journey that best matches their beliefs and their needs. And I think that that variety brings a richness to life where everyone is just trying to do the best they can to live a good life. And I just really love seeing how different people make a pathway through that. So that's what I just really enjoy that part of my life, that I've seen different stages of religious belief and understanding, and it just adds richness to my life that I enjoy.
I love that so much. And thank you so much for like laying all that out so beautifully, because I really do feel like as we go through life and as perhaps new information is brought to us and we evaluate like, is this bringing value to my life, and is this something that I want to add and incorporate to blend in together with my day to day. It sounds like that was a process that you went through of just like you were learning new information and you were seeing like how it could bring value to your life, but you're also able to see the value in other people's like interpretation of life in the world. I'm kind of going like in a broad sense here of just like hearing what you said solidifies for me that there are people in this world who are willing to like go through change and process of their own like evaluation of beliefs and like how they apply that in their lives, but also can go forward and like respect others' beliefs and such. So that's kind of like the overarching theme, I would say, of today's episode. I just love that you're able to like really summarize that up so beautifully.
Yeah, I recently heard a phrase about this. They called it a faith journey, where everyone is just on a faith journey. And I think we need to honor everyone's faith journey and whatever that looks like for them, because I think that's what we're here to do, is to be on a journey and to, determine for ourselves what we need to do and how we need to act and progress in life.
For this first segment, I wanted to kind of start with this overarching question of where do you start to understand someone's different political and religious beliefs? I think this question is so important because where do we start? I feel like it's really important for people to understand that in order to start building a relationship, you often kind of start with the fluff of maybe the day to day, like how's the weather, like what are you up to, like what are you interested in, like just very surface level things. That's something that I've been kind of discussing with my therapist before. And as you're starting to find commonality, then you can start to go a little bit deeper into those common ideals or interests. And perhaps you've already had a conversation or two with this person as well, and like you can start to build a level of understanding of where they might be coming from in their beliefs, and but maybe you're not entirely sure where they land with it yet. So to start thinking about this question of how do you begin to understand where someone is with their political or religious beliefs, there's three steps that we want to cover. And we're going to go step by step. And the first one specifically says, and we kind of like were brainstorming this. Mary and I had both like had a little workshop where we were working through these. So the first one is go in with the idea that you can make a friend. And Mary, in your mind, how do you go in with the idea that you can make a friend?
Well, I think if you're just trying to talk to someone to like figure out their religious or political beliefs, that's very personal. It's very touchy. But if you're going with it to make a friend, I think it just gives a different perspective to that conversation, that this is an ally. This is, someone where we're on the same side and we're going to find ways that we're going to, agree with each other. So I had a friend who we had, our oldest sons were about the same age, and we became friends right away. We just really enjoyed each other. And it wasn't until later that we came to realize that we were on complete opposite sides of the spectrum of our political beliefs. But when we would talk about politics, which happened later in our friendship, we found so much common ground. And it was shocking to me because this was even before, my husband was in politics. And we found things that we agreed on. And her life experiences and my life experiences had led to a belief system that we both valued, but we found the common ground, the things that we agreed on, the things that we both felt needed to change. And it was just amazing. And this was a friend. And of course, we still had things we didn't agree on, but it was just so fun to make a friend, to just see them as on the same side as us.
I love that so much. And it's amazing to see that, like, you went in with the idea of just like, let's get to know this person for like, what are they interested in? What do they do on their day to day? Like, what activities could we participate in together? Or like, how can we build community together? All without necessarily thinking of, off the bat of like, oh, if they're not politically, belief like the exact same way, it's uh, my way, the highway kind of a thing, So I love that that's how you approached it, was just very open and just getting to know, are there any similarities and different goals that, or similar goals that y'all might have together. And I think on a similar vein, if we really do take a step back, I feel like we are so much more alike than we are different. And I don't feel like we always see that all the time. I think it's really easy to not see that, or like to just step out from that, or get stuck in a trap of just, you know, my way, the highway, as mentioned. But, most of us all wake up and brush our teeth and have something for breakfast, or take care of someone or a pet, or, have a commute, or, have daily tasks or things that we need to do. But then we forget that there's so many things that make us human and help us to find that connection, that commonality, without finding things that can be polarizing or, separate us. And I feel like that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have parts of your life kind of define you in a way, or like be very important to you. But I also feel like it's tricky to navigate that in a way. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm overthinking it a bit.
I think there's a lot of voices in the world, and a lot, there's social media and news, and they would have us be enemies. They would tell us what the other person thinks and why they think it and how dumb they are. And I just think until you really talk to that person and explore it, you're missing out. And you just can't let those voices choose for you the friendships and understanding that you're going to gain.
I completely agree with you 100%. And I feel like I've been so lucky in the moments that I've actually gone in with the intention of, I'm going to just be open and explore this and just have fun and see where this moment takes me with this person. And it's great to be able to like start with that intention and that mindset.
Yeah. Well, it's always great to make new friends. That is not a bad thing.
Okay, are we ready for step two?
Let's do it.
Step two is listening to each other. And I feel like people have valid reasons for their beliefs. And most people, on some level of their journey, as you mentioned, like a faith journey or path that led them to believe in a certain way, I feel like I'm more likely to see someone's understanding if I'm seeing that they have a way that they've achieved that understanding. Like, I'm more likely to have a better grasp on, where they're at if I'm listening to how they got there, and if they're able to like share with me and elaborate on that a little bit more. I try my best to like not necessarily like subscribe to any like sort of way of thinking without having like a reason per se behind that. And so it's nice to be able to like listen to how someone has chosen to like subscribe to a way of thinking, if that makes sense.
Totally. And you want to like see it from their point of view. Like, why would they think that that is, the right way to do it? And usually they have a really good reason of why they think that. And so trying to listen to learn to them, or sorry, listen so that you can learn what they're trying to say and why they're saying it and why it's so important to them. And that's really going back to step one. That's what a friend does, is that you listen and you learn and try to see it from their side.
1000%. And I know we had kind of talked about this previously too in our workshop, but I really feel like it starts with empathy, and trying to see them for more than just like what we might be painting them with as, a single stroke of the brush, and being able to put yourself in someone's shoes isn't the easiest thing, I will say. And trying to listen intently without having like some immediate response is also really kind of tricky, because I feel like we're so trained sometimes to have like an immediate rebuttal or an immediate like point, counterpoint, or something like that, instead of just like, it's okay to just listen. And it's also okay to maybe have like as you're listening, to like have like an intentional follow-up question too. It's like you never have to like, it doesn't have to be a debate.
hmm Yeah, and in the end, after you listen and see their point of view, you don't necessarily have to agree. This is just part of gaining understanding and having a friendship. I mean, in every relationship we've ever had, you don't 100% agree with that person. But if you can at least see why they think the way they do and learn from that, that is how you have growth in your relationships. It's not from being 100% on the same page. And it gives variety, to life, to have different people of different perspectives, even if you don't 100% agree.
Okay, last step. Step three is let go of preconceived notions. And as I mentioned before about, kind of avoiding painting people with one brush based on their beliefs or like what you might have heard about their beliefs or their views or their way of life, just being open to hearing that. And again, like as mentioned, empathy is crucial. But what are your thoughts on this step?
Yeah, well, like if I go back to my friendship with this other mom friend that I had and us being on complete opposite sides of the spectrum, if I had had a preconceived notion of her, that could have tainted my ability to have a friendship with her. If I had just been let the media or social media tell me what I was supposed to think about that person, it would not allow us to build a friendship. And so letting go of that is really important, and it's really helpful so that you can hear them out, and don't let the world tell you what to think of that person and their belief system, because there's so much hate out there and we don't need to do that. There's so much more common ground than we realize.
Oh, Mary, I love that point so, so much. Like, I just wish I wish more people in the world would think and literally think like period. There you go. Like I wish more people would literally think about that because I feel like there's so much to cover on this topic of just if there was just more effort to see the other person, to hear the other person, to understand and to like just all of the steps that we just discussed. I just there's so much to like unravel there. And speaking actually of kind of unraveling a little bit, I mentioned this earlier too about are there any cultural or generational stigmas or biases that impact us from being able to like really see this other person's beliefs or ways of thinking or like to validate how they're approaching their life. And this is still one question that I'm still kind of working through a little bit because I just want to make sure that when hearing someone about like their opinion, like hearing what drives them or motivates them or where their mind is at, what's important to them, all these things, am I listening through a filter of what I've always been told or what I've been told is right or wrong, or, and it's hard to then take that filter and to then start to be like, well, is this the way that it's always been? Or, is this how I still believe today? It's a process to revisit that, potentially, reconfigure it, deconstruct it, or build it in new ways. Like as we're listening through these maybe filters or ideas that have been passed down, either culturally or generationally through prolonged ideologies in a way. But that's kind of a huge amount of like drinking from a fire hose that I just threw out there. But I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I think that you and me are like a really, like, the reason why we wanted to have this podcast was because we recognized that you and me had broken those boundaries, being a different generation, a different background and upbringing, and different political sides of the spectrum, different lifestyles, different religious beliefs. Like, because of all of those things, we have experienced the joy that comes from making a friend, listening to each other, and letting go of those preconceived notions. Because I think when I tell people about my awesome brother in law and how we talk all the time on Marco Polo, it's like that is not normal, right? And so this is something special that we have gained and learned because we did these things. And it's given us so much joy in our life.
Thank you. Thank you. I completely agree with you. And, I really admire folks that are able to proactively question and just be curious and be willing to, exercise that muscle of, as all the things that we talked about being a friend, but also being able to just not being afraid of what another person might think or feel off the bat, and just like going in as we mentioned with all these different points. So, yeah, great all around. Mary, I just want to like wrap all this up to this case study idea that we have, looking at very various different policies, different viewpoints, different things that come down through politics, but really how we discussed like COVID specifically in this kind of like red state versus blue state, or like the different experiences that can come from that and living through that. I just really appreciate that time was where we were able to exercise this muscle of, how can I be a friend to somebody? How can I be there to listen and to like see how they're living and like how this is impacting them and how they're choosing to move forward through their life, and like, all of it. And it really did mean so much to be able to like Marco Polo you regularly throughout the pandemic, and even regularly now, and be able to work through that time, because it was such a tumultuous time. And so thank you again for that.
Well, thank you, because yeah, it was just so heartbreaking what everyone went through for a variety of reasons. And so to have someone just to kind of vent with and talk with and let it out, and for us not to be like throwing away each other's ideas because it wasn't our political party or our viewpoint, was so important. Just to see each other and to see our point of views was so helpful, not just from coping with that, but also for gaining this skill set of listening to each other and being compassionate.
Well, folks, Mary and I had such a blast during our conversation, and specifically, we plan to break this out into 2 parts. There was just so much we wanted to talk about, and I really wanted to make sure we included as much as we could. From this first episode, we had an overarching question of where do you start to understand someone's different political and religious beliefs? And in part 2, the overarching question will be how can you proactively foster these relationships? I hope this episode resonated with you and encourages you to build some new bridges and make a new friend. Be on the lookout for part 2 when it drops in 2 weeks, so be sure to hit that follow or subscribe button and turn on notifications so you get notified when it drops. And with that said, I hope you have an amazing day today, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Queerly Overthinking is hosted, edited, and executive produced by Adam Harper, with additional producing by Cass Cooper. You can follow Queerly Overthinking on Instagram or TikTok at Queerly Overthinking, and you can find more at www.queerlyoverthinking.com.